All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Charlie Ann Chacon. I am one of the program outreach specialists here at HESC, which is Higher Education Services Corporation. Today I have with me a dear friend who we worked together back in the day at Siena, Soha Acosta. She's the Director of Graduate Recruitment and Marketing. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to her so she can go ahead and get started and introduce herself a little bit and tell you what she's been up to these days. But yeah, go ahead, take it away. Soha, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie. All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Soha Acosta. I'm the Director of Graduate Recruitment and Marketing in the Centralized Graduate School at the University at Albany. I've been there for about 7.5 years now, working with students who are interested in graduate school, trying to convince students to be interested in graduate school. And obviously, a big hurdle, big question is always about funding, which was my first question when I went to grad school too, right? So in this session, we're going to talk a little bit about finding funding for graduate school and those different sources. What do they mean? Like, what's a loan versus a scholarship? What's an assistantship? Can you combine them? So we're going to take a look at sort of everything. So you have an idea of maybe what opportunities are out there as you apply to graduate school. If you have questions throughout the presentation, don't save them to the end. Charlie is going to help moderate, so plop them in the chat. She can stop me. If it looks like we've moved past it, we can wait until the end, but feel free to put your questions in the chat at any point and we will get to them all. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about sources and types of funding. So looking at internal and external funding sources, indirect and direct, and I'll talk about what those mean in a second. The different types of assistantships you might be able to receive, scholarships, fellowships, and grants. Maybe thinking about if you're employed, if your employer can help pay for graduate school, and taking out loans. Talk a little bit about tips for the application. I include that because usually the tips for the application are tips for creating a really strong application for funding. I have a slide just in case there's anyone here who might be a non-US citizen or permanent resident, so on any sort of visa, anything like that, and then some additional things to consider. So let's start from the beginning. What is graduate funding? So graduate funding is a sort of financial assistance or aid that alleviates the cost of attendance. So that could be for a master's degree, a PhD degree, maybe you're thinking of an advanced certificate, for any sort of a degree beyond your bachelor's. And funding can come from different sources. So again, we're looking at sources of internal, which means that they're associated to the university, or external, not associated to the university. And then they can either be indirect or direct. Indirect usually means that it's not coming directly to you, right? Like it's going to your tuition bill in some sort of way. It's not coming directly into your pocket. Direct means that you are receiving the money, right? It's going into your bank account. And you'll see in a little bit that some assistantships can be a combination of this. So they can provide a tuition waiver or some sort of assistance towards tuition, which would go towards your bill, plus a stipend, which would come to you. So it could be a combination of the two. So let's look a little bit at a little chart here that might help also explain it. So again, internal can be assistantships, scholarships, fellowships, and grants, maybe a job. External funding, again, scholarships, fellowships, and grants, maybe a job, maybe a loan. And indirect, an assistantship, scholarships, a loan, and direct, again, assistantship, scholarship, a job, or a loan, because all of those could come to you depending on what type it is. It could come, again, to your bank account, to your pocket. So let's start off with assistantships. These are internal positions to the university. They're like holding a job at the university that will provide some sort of aid to you. So it could be, again, that they're going to cover some tuition. Maybe they're going to cover all of your tuition. Maybe they're going to provide a partial stipend or a full stipend. It usually doesn't cover fees, but again, we'll talk about sort of reading the offer letter before you accept anything to see if that's included or not. Some assistantships provide health insurance, actually. So at the University at Albany, students who receive an assistantship are actually in a graduate student employment union and even get health insurance. So all things to consider. Assistantships for that reason are very competitive because again, they're usually covering your tuition, they're providing some sort of stipend, and they usually have these other perks with them. Plus you're getting the experience on a campus usually in your field. There are different types of assistantships depending on what you're doing for the work. The first one is a research assistantship. Sounds like what it is. You're probably assisting a professor in a lab. A teaching assistant, you're helping a faculty member, maybe as a TA for the course. So you're in the course with the faculty member. Some TAs, as they progress, will teach their own course. They'll teach their own undergraduate courses. You might help with grading. This can look like a lot of different things. And then graduate assistantships. And these might be called something different at every institution. We call it a graduate assistantship, and that's usually more of an administrative role. So you might not be directly in your unit or in your department, but you might be in a different unit on campus somewhere helping with more administrative items. They usually have a set number of hours per week. So our full assistantships are 20 hours a week. So it's considered full-time work technically because you're doing that and school. Some of them are 10 hours a week. So again, you'll read your offer letter and see what they have offered to you before you make a decision. We'll talk all about that. How you find these. So, right, this sounds wonderful. I want an assistantship. Everyone wants an assistantship, but where do you look for these? And it's going to vary. Every school, even within the school, every program is going to be different. You really want to be very proactive, and that's in regards to finding them and applying to them. A lot of funding, a lot of these assistantships will have actually much earlier deadlines than the actual application. So for example, if a PhD in engineering application, the deadline is in March, their funding deadline is probably going to be in like December or January. And if you miss that deadline, there's usually no going back because it's so competitive. They usually have enough qualified applications that they can make a decision. So just make sure you're proactive, contact offices, contact faculty members. Most institutions, departments, universities have a person like me that you can find on the website, you can reach out to, you can ask these questions to. You also want to be a bit reactive too, right? So not just blast emailing everyone, make sure you're doing your homework before you're sending emails. Read the website, try to find the information you can, see where they might be advertised, and then from there, reach out to people as needed. For research assistantships, you're usually going to have direct contact with the faculty. And I will say that a lot of research assistantships are reserved for PhD students. So if you're interested in going for a PhD, this is likely something you would get. So you want to be in touch with a faculty member. If you're going for a PhD, you're likely already looking at faculty, right? You're looking to see if their research aligns with what you want to do for your research. So make sure you're emailing them a professional email. We do a whole presentation on communicating professionally with faculty members, right? You're not going to just jump into like, hi, I'd like to be a research assistant, or hi, can you give me money, right? You want to talk to them about the research, about why you're interested, the academics, and then you piece together and start introducing the idea of a research assistantship, or they might offer it as you guys have a conversation, you send them your resume. A teaching assistantship is usually assigned by the department. Maybe once they have all their applications, they made all their decisions, they figure out who has expertise to teach which courses. And I was a TA for my master's. So depending on the institution, you can find a teaching assistantship for a master's degree. Again, very competitive. Again, you would likely get either an RA or a TA if you get admitted into a PhD program. And then graduate assistantships, these are going to be sort of all over the place. So pay attention to listservs. If like your advisor is emailing you, make sure you're looking at those. Sometimes there are opportunities in those emails. Contact academic offices, contact centralized graduate schools like us. And if you're familiar, if you ever used Handshake, a lot of graduate assistantships will be posted on Handshake at different institutions, so you could look there. We have a website where we post teaching assistantship and graduate assistantship vacancies. They're mainly graduate assistantship vacancies, and they're all over campus, so like athletics, res life, student affairs. So it's really a diverse group of work, depending on what you want to do. So let's move on to scholarships, fellowships, and grants. There's usually no expectation to repay these, and they don't have a service component. So unlike an assistantship, which you usually also do not have to repay, but it does have a service component, scholarships, fellowships, and grants usually do not have a service expectation. I say usually because as I say that, we have a fellowship that does have a service component where you are working. And that's the point of it, is for grad students to get some work experience. So again, make sure you're looking at the details when you're applying. Um, they're usually awarded to applicants based on certain criteria. So it could be merit, which usually means it's based on your GPA, your academics, service, or some other metrics. Maybe an attribute. So again, belonging to a certain population, maybe you're a woman in STEM or diversity, or fields of study that has a specific scholarship or fellowship to them. And those might not be consistent every year. So again, maybe because you don't get something as soon as you enter your graduate program, doesn't mean that other opportunities won't come up as you go through your graduate degree. Or need. So again, demonstrating financial need or burden. And they can come from a variety of sources, internally from your department, the institution, the school or college, and external. So if you're part of any professional affiliations, if you were as an undergrad student, so like a National Honor Society or Sigma Chi, I think it is, for like psychology students. So if you're a part of any of those, stay on their listservs, even if you've graduated, because they might send out these opportunities that you can apply to. Your local community might have some, and employers might also, not just tuition reimbursement, which we'll talk about, but they might offer some sort of scholarship or fellowship. So where to find them? Again, first place to start is look on the website, right? Do your homework first before you start reaching out to people. Your department might have them, your school, college, or the university as a whole. Complete the FAFSA. That could make you eligible. I didn't fully understand this until COVID hit, and then every institution was using the FAFSA to see what students might be eligible for different scholarships and fellowships that became available during that time. So always fill out the FAFSA when you're going into graduate school, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it could make you eligible for scholarships you didn't know you might be eligible for. Ask your advisor or the department chair. If you're able to talk to current grad students in the program, which I always recommend, ask them. They might have tips as to what they found or things that they know that are coming up. And again, pay close attention to those listservs, to emails. If you're part of, again, professional organizations, if you're going to conferences, pay attention to those. And then external, again, just ask around, get involved, see what you're able to find. It's casting a wide net and seeing what's out there and then narrowing it down from there. So when talking about jobs, this could be while you're a student or if you're working full-time and you're going part-time. So again, you can gain some sort of income, whether it's part-time or full-time, on campus or off campus. And they can come from a variety of sources. So if you're working on campus, keep in mind that this isn't going to be something that's going to pay your full tuition, right? You're studying while working. This is probably just something you're doing in addition, like maybe tutoring or helping in an office. But if you're working part-time, or even full-time and going to school part-time, you definitely want to check with your employer to see if they have some sort of tuition assistance or tuition reimbursement. Um, Depending on what the job is, if there's a union there, sometimes they provide tuition reimbursements, or there's some way to apply for a scholarship. So you always want to ask. If you work full-time, start off with HR. They're usually a good place to begin, to see what might be the options. If you're applying for jobs, this might be something you look for. This might be something you ask in the interview, is like, do you provide any assistance if I plan to go back for a master's degree, or if I plan to do graduate school part-time or an advanced certificate, whatever it is. And how to find them? I mean, we all know how to find jobs, right? So you're going to do your homework again. I mentioned Handshake because we use that. I know a lot of universities are on Handshake if you're looking for like a part-time job on campus. Again, if you're already employed, so congratulations. But you can attend career fairs. If you are in your undergraduate degree and they have career fairs, go to those, ask the questions, see what's out there, see what employers are offering. You might be able to reach out to folks via LinkedIn. Maybe you find some email addresses. Again, don't lean into these emails with starting with hi, I'd like money. Always start off professional, talk to them about other things, and then break into that conversation. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about loans. So, as we know, in the US, loans are typically an external source of funding that are for US citizens or permanent residents. And there are two, there are federal loans and private loans. So, federal loans, this is usually some sort of financial aid that's need-based. It has different eligibility. So, US citizen or permanent resident, you have to be degree seeking. I say this because we get students who apply non-degree. So, they're just taking a few courses to sort of try out a program, and then they're really upset when they don't get financial aid, when they don't qualify for financial aid. So you need to be in a degree seeking program. That means that at the end, the completion, the goal is again a degree, a master's, a certificate, a PhD. And you need to be enrolled at least part-time, which is 5 credits, and continue to make satisfactory progress towards your degree. And at the graduate level, they're always unsubsidized. So that means the interest accrues immediately once you finish. So some federal loans you'll see here. There are Stafford loans that have different lifetime limits. Interest rates is from 23, 24. So this might likely needs to be updated. And then plus loans. So just keep in mind there are going to be different benefits to different ones, different downsides to different ones. You always want to do your research. In addition to federal loans, you could look for private loans. So through banks, through whoever you can find a private loan through, many lenders offer them. They're also typically unsubsidized with an annual limit. So again, unsubsidized means that you're going to be paying them off as soon as you finish. There's no sort of grace period. And you want to pay close attention to interest rates and the full details of the loan when coming from a private lender. It's going to vary from lender to lender, and interest rates usually are higher. So again, if you have to, you can take out a private loan. If a federal loan won't cover everything, but hopefully a federal loan would, especially if you're looking at a state school, like a SUNY school and you're a New York State resident, those federal loans should cover your degree. Public service loan forgiveness, if you're working full-time as a state or federal employee, or if you plan to, or if that's a goal of yours, if it wasn't a goal of yours, it might be now, you can, after a certain amount of time, they will forgive your loans. So again, did not believe this, but one of my friends that I work with, it actually happened to her. She went to law school. She still had a ton of loans, but she worked for the state for 10 years, and she had an email, she screenshotted it, that literally said like it wiped her loans. She was at zero. So this is a real thing. So again, if you're still out there, if you're still trying to think of like what you want to do, you might want to consider a public job. So working for the state or as a federal employee. In general, it's best to apply for federal loans first, again, because those are going to be a bit more consistent. They're not going to have the super high interest rate, and then supplement with other loans if you must. Don't forget at the graduate level too, you're now considered an independent student. So in undergrad, if you didn't have a lot to do with your FAFSA filing, that's totally fine. But in undergrad, you were probably a dependent of your parents. As soon as you finish your bachelor's, you become an independent student. So usually do qualify for more loans because usually once you graduate from a bachelor's, you're not making a ton of money. So you might qualify for more money than you thought, which can be a pleasant surprise. But again, just keep in mind interest rates, you're going to be paying it back right away. And how to find them. So federal loans, you want to fill out that FAFSA. And you want to fill it out every year to apply. So every year that you're in graduate school, fill it out. Again, the process, I just mentioned this, the process is different because you're not putting in parental information anymore. So it's solely based on your income, which could be basically nothing if you're going directly from undergrad to graduate. And again, you can look at this website right here. If you just Google the FAFSA, it'll come up. And usually the institution's financial aid office will send you a letter similar to undergrad telling you what you've qualified for. And again, that could include scholarships that are coming from the institution, et cetera. And private loans, do your research again. Make sure you're reading the fine print. There's a link here of 16 best private student loans. Similar lists can be found. I don't endorse any of them, just a resource in case you would like a place to start to kind of just see what is out there. So let's look at some tips when applying for funding. Again, I put this in here because you're probably already doing this for your graduate application. If not, you should be. So you want to update your CV or resume. So make sure it's accurate, it's clean, it's easy to read, it's relevant, right? So you're not providing 7 pages of stuff that has nothing to do with you wanting to go into a degree for an MPA. So having it hands-on helps you sort of give it to people. If you're emailing people, you can just attach it. But you'll likely also need that document again in general when applying to graduate school. It's usually a pretty common application material requirement. And maintain good academic standing. So if you're still an undergrad, you still have some time. You want to maintain your grades, prepare, study. If your program requires the GRE or GMAT or anything else, MCAT, LSAT, whatever, make sure you're doing your best on those exams because some institutions might use those for funding. So just keep all of that in mind. Um, they can be used for not only assistantships, they could be used for scholarships as well. So for example, the University at Albany, we do have a Dean's Merit Scholarship, and you must have a 3.0 at least to get that. So if you're below that, it sort of disqualifies you from that scholarship. So just keep that in mind, do your homework, look around. And always make a good first, second, third, fourth, fifth impression. So I keep saying this about the emails. Be professional in all of your emails. I say this because we get some funny emails at the University at Albany. Be professional, be polite via email. It doesn't matter if you're picking up the phone, if someone's called you, whatever it is. If you get a text, because universities text nowadays too, be professional, write out your words, don't use slang, treat it as a job interview, as if you're applying for a job, because that's what funding is. They are paying you essentially to go to graduate school. People will have limited interactions with you. So again, a good first impression is very important, but they're going to be relying on those. They don't know you. They're only going to know what they see electronically and in your application. And even if they don't have an opportunity, this has happened before, me personally, they might keep you in mind for future things. So just a quick story is I met a student who was starting a graduate program this past spring. I didn't have funding then, but something came up and I remembered her because she was amazing. And I reached out to her and I offered her an assistantship. So keep that in mind. People will remember you if you make a good impression on them. And submit your applications as early as possible within the application period. Like I said, definitely don't miss the deadline. But if departments are reviewing applications on a rolling admission, or if they're just even scanning through applications, the earlier you get it in, the more you might be able to stick out in their heads. So just a quick one slide in case there's anyone that's a non-US citizen or permanent resident. It's a little bit different. You can still apply for any assistantships. Scholarships, fellowships, and grants might be more limited because some of them might have a residency requirement. Same thing with loans. You can't apply for federal loans, but you can take out private loans. And then jobs, you just want to be mindful of how many hours you might be able to work per week, given if you're on a visa or whatever your status might be in the US. All right, some things to consider. This is fun. Funding is often negotiable. Those full offers, so like those assistantships, are usually negotiable. Okay. So what you want to do is, again, the theme throughout is be respectful, make a good first impression, and leverage other offers. So I should have said, funding is negotiable if you have more than one funding offer. If you only have one, you can't negotiate against anything. But if you have other offers and you're really set on a school, you can let them know, I got this assistantship from this other school. It's actually covering my full tuition instead of partial, or they're giving me more of a stipend than what you're giving me, and explain the circumstances. Be ready to provide that letter because they might ask for it to be able to go back to whoever they need to go back to request additional funding. But again, you can try to negotiate your funding offer if you have more than one offer. If it's an internal source, ask for what you need to complete your degree. They do want you to succeed. Everyone wants you to succeed once you're in graduate school. And a mix of funding might be needed. Like I said, if you get an assistantship and it's only partial, you might need to seek other scholarships, or you might have to take out a loan, or maybe you get a part-time job. Keep in mind though, if you get a full-time assistantship, there's usually something in the letter that says you cannot hold another job. So just something to look out for and something to keep in mind in case you think you might need an extra job to also supplement that assistantship. It might not be allowed. In the search for funding, consider all expenses. So a lot of people just look at tuition, and they don't realize, oh my gosh, I'm living in California and it's really expensive. So make sure you are considering all your expenses, not just tuition. So you're looking at fees. Does it cover the fees? How much are those fees? Can you waive out or opt out of any of those fees to help make it a little bit cheaper? Cost of living in the area. Will you need transportation? Is transportation free? What does that look like? Does it offer health insurance, or is that something you're going to have to worry about? Any existing debt that you might have. So that could be from undergrad, that could be a car loan, that could be literally anything. And if you have any dependents, so if you have children that you have to take care of, a spouse or your family members, make sure you're keeping that in mind, not just for funding, but time as well, time commitment. And always ask again. The worst that people can say is we don't have anything, right? Or we've given you all that we can give you. But it never hurts to ask, but ask politely. Some additional things to consider is that funding can change over the course of a degree. So especially for a PhD. So it can go away or there can be more opportunities. So what do I mean by that? In a PhD, it can take what, 5 to 8 years to complete a PhD. Sometimes funding will only cover through year 3 or through year 4, which means that if you're there beyond that, which is likely going to happen if you're in a PhD program, you're going to have to consider ways to pay for that, or you're going to just be aware that you're going to have to look for other sorts of funding while in graduate school. Also think about how many terms it covers. So does it cover just the fall and spring, and then during the summer, you're on your own? Or does it cover fall, spring, and summer? And read the terms of the assistantship carefully. Is it waiving all tuition? Is it only partial? What's the stipend? Is it partial? Is it more? Again, how does that stipend relate to the cost of living in that area and your personal circumstances? How many hours per week are required for you to work? Can you hold other jobs? I mentioned that. Look for that. Surprised me. I actually didn't know that was a thing. So when I heard that if you're offered a full-time assistantship, there's something in the letter that says you cannot hold another job, I was pretty surprised. So just make sure you're reading that. And are you expected to work over breaks? Maybe you don't want to work, so you want to go back and see family, but it could say that you have to be in the lab. They have mice that they have to keep alive, and that's your job. So just make sure you're reading and looking for all those details. And if it's not in there, you always ask. And then additional things to consider, and I promise this is my last slide and we'll open it up to questions. Funding sources, again, in all forms have pros and cons. So it really depends on your personal circumstances. So my recommendation is you want to start by looking for internal funding first, right? From the university, because that's usually not going to require you to repay anything. And it's probably going to get you some work experience, which you'll want for your resume. But you also want to understand your workload of being a student plus that job. And if it's going to work out for you, if it's going to cause more stress, if it's not worth it, that's all up to you. And supplementing funding. How are you going to, if you have to do it, how are you going to do it? What's the best option for you? And then part-time versus full-time. Some sources of funding, usually most, like 98% of them, require you to be a full-time student. So if you are working full-time and you know you cannot be a full-time student, that's going to limit your funding offers, but go into it knowing that. So just keep that in mind. If you're going part-time, I will say it's going to limit your options for funding unless your employer is providing you some sort of tuition assistance while you work or while you study. Sorry. Okay, like I said, I promise that was it. This is just a thank you slide. Ways to contact us. If you ever need to contact the University at Albany, if we're on your short list, happy to help. I would be your contact person. So, but yeah, any questions?
Yeah, feel free to put any questions you have in the chat or in the question and answer box there. But Yeah, this was great. So, yeah, I remember. So for those of you, obviously you don't know me too well, but I used to work at RPI. I was one of the graduate advisors. I actually was a graduate admissions at first, and then I went to be a graduate advisor for the business school. And I think one of the biggest things that you pointed out, Soha, is that students are reaching out, but they are not always pleasant and respectful about it. That's the biggest thing I would say, and the biggest tip that I, you know, give to you guys is that if you are reaching out, which most likely you will be, yes, be respectful. Make sure that when you're drafting that email, that it's not like a copy and paste of everyone you're sending to, because we do see when you don't change the name of the school,
Yes.
or if
Yeah.
it's too long, faculty members are like, I'm not reading this. This is way
Yes.
too long. So that is always some other stuff that I always that would come across, and sometimes it sticks out and the student ends up coming and it ends up being something that you help them with, and that was something I always like to do. But yeah, so those are definitely some great tips. Um, yep, feel free, like I said, guys, if you guys have any questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat, or in the Q&A section there.
This is an important topic. It's money. Ask us
Yes,
questions.
yes, yes, it is money.
Just
'Cause,
questions.
yeah, it's not like undergrad. You're not getting, you may get some grants and scholarships, but a lot of times you do have to really search and get that money. So,
Mhm.
it's very important. Yeah, so I see there somebody does raise their hand. Feel free to put your question in the chat. I'm able to unmute anyone or do that. So feel free to please put your question in the chat. All right, so looks like we do have one question. For certificate program, is there options other than FAFSA?
So I think it'll say it'll depend on the institution. You might be able to find some scholarships. I will say for certificate programs, you're likely not going to qualify for assistantships, but you might be able to find some sort of a merit scholarship, or depending on how niche your program is, there might be scholarships around that area that you can apply to.
All right, so
I
is there
wish.
any?
I'm doing it.
Okay,
I
you're right.
wish. I wish. So the question is there any website lists of all external scholarship information available to grad students? No, I absolutely wish. And it's because it depends so much on the institution, right? Even SUNY schools, like just look at the SUNY schools and you'll laugh. Like everything is so different because it's usually based on the funding of that institution. Now, there are some websites that have lists of funding that are more like grant based. So, like NSF, National Science Foundation, DoD. So, you might want to look at some of those. Those are usually much larger, much more competitive, and are usually reserved for like specific disciplines. Um, but there isn't one. Each university might have a website that talks about its own funding, like we do, but there isn't one that lists it for just like every grad program. I wish. That'd be a lot to maintain.
Yes, that'd be incredible if it did exist, right? So we do have a question. It looks like in the question and answer kind of box. I don't know if we see it there, so but I
Yeah.
can read it if not. It says, would assistantships be valuable to someone who has a that covers most or the majority of the costs?
Yes,
Yes, yes,
absolutely. So assistantships would lower the aid that you would get. I don't know what kind of aid you're referring to, but if it's something you have to pay back, right? It would be nice to not have to pay something back or gain interest on something. But even just beyond that, an assistantship provides you work experience. So just like, again, I had a TA when I was in graduate school. I got my degree in Spanish linguistics, and the jobs I applied to, because I'm also a Spanish instructor, all required previous work experience. Um, which is funny. It's like this catch-22. You can't get a job without the experience. You can't get the experience without a job. But my teaching assistantship is what gave me that experience to make me qualified to apply for these instructor positions. So again, even just beyond financial, you'll definitely get some excellent work experience. So I definitely always recommend the assistantship should be the goal. Like for any master's, PhD, the assistantship should be the goal. And from there, you sort of go down and look, if you don't get an assistantship, look at scholarships, look at what age you might qualify for, etc.
Yeah, and I think what I'll add to that is the biggest thing is also making that professional connection that
Yeah.
will carry with you forward. So that is definitely something that, you know, gives you so much value. Let's see.
Do you see the tap question?
I do. And we're not going to address the tap questions or anything like that in this, but feel free to reach out to us. We do have a virtual drop-in tomorrow from 2 to 4. I don't know if you are aware or not, but I'll go ahead and also throw in the chat the link to it. What the virtual drop-in is for any students who do have those general questions. This seems like it might be a little bit more specific, but feel free to come, with that question in our session tomorrow, and, we'll do our best to help you. All right, so this is it here. So there's that link directly to that virtual drop-in that we are having tomorrow from 2 to 4. But yeah, and then I guess while I'm having the opportunity, since we're on this page, I might as well send the rest of the calendar events that we do have for everything that's coming up. So just in case, oh wait, that is not gonna go to you, sorry, I choose the right one. Let's try that. All right, so I sent it to you, so I don't think that'd be very helpful to them. All right, so all right, let me try that again. I'll say, so I got 2 links for you. That first link is going to take you right directly to our event calendar. You'll be able to see any events that may be of interest to you. Feel free to come. We'd love to have you. And then that second link will get you right to that virtual drop-in. And yeah, that really is, we do that every week. Every Wednesday, if you guys need help with anything, come and, we're here to help, try to, guide you and see what we could do. So
I'm looking at these events. These are cool.
yeah. Yeah, they're pretty cool events, and we try to, if anybody ever has any questions or just event ideas, if you guys are interested or need more of something, I mean, feel free to let us know. I'm always thinking of ideas of trying to come up with a new, topic or something to provide to you guys. Obviously, we're always having, trying to provide funding for you guys. That's what we do here at HESC, right? We help you pay for college. So, in terms of that, those are the kind of topics that we try to stay around, but if there's anything that interests you guys, and we think you need more of it, feel free to let us know. I'd love to put something together for you for sure. I know you were mentioning something, Soha, about something you do about professional writing and stuff like that.
Yeah, we talk
Or
we have like a slate of which anyone can sign up for too is on this my last slide. We do like a slate of applying to grad school. It's called our Graduate School Preparation Academy. So like we talk about why going to grad school is important, how to write a personal statement, communicating professionally. We do this finding funding webinar. So we're happy to help in any way. And they're broad. They're not just about UAlbany. We keep them broad because students should be applying to more than one institution when applying to graduate school. And we understand that, and you're going to pick the best fit for you. We just want to help you in the process.
yeah, so check out everybody's websites that you're interested in. I mean, everybody has these type of, events. We all are here to help you guys in any way we can. So every school has a, event calendar. We're always putting something together. So I know when I was at Arcadia and Siena, we did the same thing. So yeah, but I think it seems like that's about all of our questions for now. So I think we'll wrap it up here. I think we made good timing. Everybody could now go, if you haven't had dinner already, you can go get started and ready. But thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you so much, Soha, for joining us. You do great as always. Thank you so much. If anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out, but have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.